Broken Kanu's way, and Dahui's right out of the centre. It's Kanu, what's he going to do? Oh! Can you believe it?
Hello Arsenal fans, and welcome back to a new episode of Can You Believe It, an Arsenal podcast. And it has been a while since I've posted the last episode. I think it's just been over a month, so apologies for that. I've just been really busy with work and other commitments as well, so it hasn't meant that I've been near a microphone or been able to speak to you about Arsenal, so apologies for that. Hopefully we will be returning to a regular schedule from now on, and obviously the Premier League starts in a few weeks, so there will be match reviews as well, and I'm going to be doing more video content as well. So before we get into it, please like and subscribe on YouTube. Please leave me a review on iTunes. Spread the podcast around so more people can listen to it and we can get more of an engagement. But let's start. So I'm recording this about 10-15 minutes after the Arsenal versus Chelsea game finished. I don't usually record straight after games just because I think my reaction is not as nuanced as you want it to be. I think it can be very easily be quite heated, especially if Arsenal lose and they haven't played well or anything. And it just makes it for a better discussion if you leave it for a day or two. I have done it a few hours after, but I'm literally doing this within the same hour as the Chelsea game finished. The only reason why I'm doing this is because it's a pre-season game and ultimately results don't really matter at this point. I know a lot of fans don't really like that excuse, but for me, I'm just looking at fitness and looking at trends and looking at things we can work on and looking at things that weren't so good. I will be talking about the Chelsea game specifically, but I'll also be referencing some other moments in the pre-season game. So obviously, if we go in order, we lost to Hibs 2-1. We drew with Rangers 2-2. We beat Millwall and beat Watford 4-1 each. So, and then obviously today, which was the Chelsea game at home in the Mind series, and we lost 2-1. Now, the team that started the game is something that you would expect Arsenal to really use going forward, and it wouldn't surprise me if by the opening day of the season that was the team that he pulled out. And obviously there might be a change to that, which we'll talk about later. I think some of the things that happened in this game that really worried me were mainly to do with midfield. Now, this excludes Thomas Partey, who I thought was sensational before he went off, unfortunately, with an ankle injury. He looked like he turned his ankle and it looks like he has an ankle sprain. We have no reports yet, obviously, because it's way too soon, but hopefully he's back soon. But it could be likely that he misses the Brentford game, which is absolutely gutting. He was sensational in the first half. I really enjoyed him and his performance, just his ability to be able to look forward and be able to pass it so quickly, but also to look so strong and look so skillful as well. It just looks so nice when Partey is on song, and he's looked fantastic all pre-season actually. He obviously had that game against Hibs where he had the free kick and he hit the post. So he's looked good, and it's such a shame that Arsenal are going to be losing him for a bit of time because he's been really great and I've enjoyed watching him in pre-season and was excited about where he could potentially go for us. But apart from that, the other midfielders are probably not good enough. I mean, you got El Neni who started alongside him in the first half. He got brought off early in the second half and he just wasn't good. He was giving the ball away. It's not very El Neni like, because El Neni is very good at just keeping the ball, but he was giving the ball away quite easily, and his positioning for some of the attacks Chelsea had were ridiculously bad. Arsenal need to improve in this area, and this is one of the areas that Arsenal really need to improve in. I think Partey's a lock. That's for certain. You can see that he's a fantastic player. You've got Xhaka, who we don't even know now if he's going to go. It looks like his heart is sort of set for Roma, but he scored today, he played today. Arsenal are apparently looking to sign him to a new contract, which I find ridiculous because I'm fine with Xhaka staying, but offering him a new contract just seems a bit of an overkill. It's just really not necessary. But I would want a partner who's potentially got more to grow in alongside Partey. We've been linked with Bruno Guimaraes from Lyon, who looks a really good player, a really good prospect. We've obviously signed a midfield, and we've signed Albert Sambi Lokonga, which was a good signing. He's looked really interesting during pre-season, and if I'm Mikel Arteta, I'm probably starting him. Now, obviously, the caveat for me is I think Arsenal fans and football fans in general actually maybe overrate signings, new signings straight away. And I don't want to go overboard with Lokonga because I thought he's looked good. But I've enjoyed watching Lokonga. I've enjoyed his willingness to always look forward, always look to pass forward. He looks like he can carry the ball forward as well. He's an interesting player and he's a bit more adventurous than El Neni, and we could do a lot worse than to start him on the opening day of the season. I understand he's still raw. He's still probably not physically ready for the Premier League because he looks very slight. He probably needs to bulk up a bit to get that kind of mass that you need for the Premier League. But in terms of his raw attributes, he's got everything. So I'm excited to see him. I'm happy that we signed him because, again, you've probably heard me many times on this podcast talk about how Lokonga is the type of signing we should be doing, finding them before they get big. And he's done really well so far in pre-season, and I hope we see him more. But the midfield was worrying. The reason why I was really worried, it's not even because of the adventurousness, because I thought Lokonga done that well. Xhaka, he's always going to progress the ball forward. Partey done it well when he was on the pitch. It was the gaps being left on counter-attacks between the defence and the midfield. And regularly, Arsenal were left one-on-one with a Chelsea attacker. And that's how Chelsea scored their first goal through Kai Havertz. It was really poor defending. I think it was Callum Chambers and Mari who were left. No, it was Mari, sorry, who was left alone with Werner, who done well, brought the ball forward. He passed it to Havertz, and Havertz scored past Tierney and Leno. And obviously, that's a massive worry. Happened a few times later on in the game. Ben White came on in the second half, our new signing. I'll talk about him a bit later as well. You've got Ziyech going through, again, 1v1. Leno doesn't cover himself in any glory, to be honest, and it was a last-ditch tackle from Ben White. But it happened regularly during this game, and it's weird because it hasn't happened all pre-season. I think the one trend we've seen from pre-season is that we keep conceding from set pieces. That's been the trend at the moment, and I think in this game we defended them well and we actually attacked them well, but that was a real worry for me. It was a really odd setup. I understand Arteta's probably looking to play a higher line for Arsenal to incorporate more dominance further up the pitch, to incorporate a superiority further up the pitch. I get that, but there's got to be a balance and it's something to work on with the defenders because we did not have this last season. I don't think many people remember it now because it's such a long time ago, but I think when Arteta joined and we were playing four at the back, these were situations we were getting in and there wasn't any reward going forward for the most part. So it might just need to be tweaked and there's things that need to be sorted out and you hope Arsenal can do it. Again, the result doesn't really matter at this point. It's just about trends and about the fitness of the players. And some players look really sharp on the day and have looked sharp all pre-season. Partey's one I've mentioned already, but Nicolas Pepe, I thought, has looked sharp all pre-season. I don't think he was on his best game today, but he just always looks a threat. He's probably our biggest goal threat at the moment, which is saying something about our other contributors, but he looks sharp as well. I think Smith Rowe has looked good, and obviously this is coming off the fact that he's signed a new contract now, he's staying, and he's been given a number 10 shirt. He's looking really positive. He hit the post today with a really good effort against Chelsea. He's going to be crucial for us this season. And even someone like who's on the fringes of the squad, like Eddie Nketiah, who looks like he might be leaving or Arsenal are looking to sell, is someone who's looked very sharp this pre-season. He's showed a bit of his game, which I've never really seen. He's always been a poacher, but I thought his raw attributes haven't been that good. But his raw attributes have got better, and his link-up play and hold-up play has been a bit better. So he looks good. These are obviously players that are looking sharp. I thought Kanu Tavares, I think he looked sharp against Rangers when he scored that goal. But I thought in the Millwall game, I thought he was a bit hit and miss. So there are things to work on, but I think the main worry about this side is that Arsenal haven't really improved or changed since last season, really. Obviously, we've brought in 3 players, and we can talk about them now. Kanu Tavares, who I mentioned just a bit ago, he's obviously a backup left-back to Kieran Tierney. He's a decent prospect. Benfica fans were happy to see him go. But sometimes maybe you just need a change of scenery, and you want to hope that he can be someone who improves at Arsenal. He's looked sharp, like I've said, and hopefully it will be something that can help us in the long run. Obviously, the ideal situation is that he barely plays and Kieran Tierney plays, but it's good to have a good backup left back and a good prospect coming through. The worst thing that could happen is that he's not very good and we can sell because he's still quite young. The best thing can happen is that he's a very good left back and really pushes Tierney to improve and pushes for a first team place. So that's a good signing in my opinion. You got Sambi Lokonga, or Sambi as he likes to be called. Very good signing. I think the scouting team at Arsenal probably looked at Partey and thought, let's get someone who can build into that profile, and that's sort of what Lokonga looks like. He's a very good ball progressor, just like Partey. He's very good at bringing the ball forward, like I mentioned earlier. He's looked good in pre-season. He looks much more mature than his age. He's obviously going to need time to adapt to the Premier League, but I think he's a really good and interesting signing, and I've enjoyed watching him so far. Again, with the caveat that we as fans like new signings and we like watching new signings. But the big one is Ben White. Ben White obviously signed on Friday. He was unveiled as an Arsenal player. Obviously, everyone's going to be talking about the fee. It's a huge fee, £50 million. He's our 3rd most expensive signing ever. It's a big deal. He has to hit the ground running. Obviously, I understand he's a prospect. He will improve at Arsenal, hopefully. He is a defender who has really unique ball progression skills. He also carries the ball as well. If you look at someone like Harry Maguire, Manchester United spent a lot of money on him, but you can see the sort of defender he is in terms of he carries the ball forward and brings the ball forward for the midfield and hopefully can push us up the pitch. He played decently in his cameo against Chelsea. Obviously, he made that goal line clearance. Gave the ball away a couple of times, but again, he's only been in training for a few days and he's only just getting to know his teammates. He wasn't as adventurous as you would think from Ben White, but again, it is something that hopefully we will see greater down the line. He obviously took the number of William Saliba, the number 4, which obviously some fans are not liking. I don't really like it when they take numbers away from players out on loan. As long as Saliba was fine with it and they talked to him about it, it's all right. But it's still not really a good move. I would have totally understood if Ben White took number 18, and it probably would have suited him, actually. But no, number 4 is what he's got, and that's what he'll be wearing this season. He's basically what we're hoping is like a David Luiz replacement, and he can play alongside Gabriel at the centre of our defence. Gabriel has obviously not gone to the Olympics, unlike Martinelli, because he's injured, so hopefully Gabriel can return soon. But it's a lot of money, and I'm fine with it. He seems like a good player, but I'm only fine with it if we improve in midfield and if we also improve with a creator. That is the most important thing, I find, anyway. So there are other things that I want to talk about. We'll end the podcast with talking about what Arsenal need to do. But I want to touch on Smith Rowe because obviously since the last time I spoke, there were obviously the Aston Villa rumours. I pretty much said in that podcast that I thought Smith Rowe would be someone who would sign a new contract. He's an Arsenal boy. He said he wanted to be a legend here. And lo and behold, a few weeks later, he signed a new deal. And it's obviously fantastic news. He's obviously got the number 10 shirt as well. So let's talk about the new deal first before we talk about the shirt number. Now, this is a huge show of faith towards Smith Rowe to give him this new deal. And obviously the Aston Villa interest helped because I think it's probably put a few more thousands a week on his contract. We obviously think highly of him. If we are rejecting 30 to 35 million pound bids, Arteta seems to really like him, and he seems to really like Arteta. He seems to really like Arsenal as well. Like I mentioned, he mentioned before, and he mentioned in the interview when he signed the contract, he wants to be a one-club man. He wants to be a legend. Now, obviously, you take that with a pinch of salt because I'm sure if Arsenal are performing very, very badly, he won't hesitate to move, which is completely understandable. But it's nice to hear nonetheless. He's well-deserved, and now we have a core of young players who are tied down. We have Tierney, who signed a new contract this summer. Smith Rowe obviously signed a new contract this summer. Martinelli last summer. Saka last summer. As well as bringing in Lokonga, White, Gabriel last summer. New deal for Balogun. These are all players that are going to be around our core going forward, and it's exciting to hear that players want to commit. If there's one thing I can credit Mikel Arteta for, is that he's getting these players to stay. Now, obviously, I think Smith Rowe was an easy deal because he loves Arsenal. You can tell that, but still, Arsenal would have stretched it out in the past, and to get it done relatively quickly without much of a hitch is good for Arsenal. So I'm glad he's staying. As for the shirt number, there's been a lot of debate about it. I was fully behind him taking the number 10 because I believe in his ability. I believe in him as a player. I think he's a top prospect. I think I believed it mainly from his first season under Emery. I didn't really have any doubt that I thought he was going to be a really good player. It was just the injuries. I thought if you gave him a run of games, he was going to be someone who could really push himself into the Arsenal first team. And here we are. He's the number 10 now. And it's a huge show of faith, again, from Arteta to give him that number. Arteta said he asked for it, which I like. I like that he asked for it. I like that he asked for something that was maybe a bit beyond his reach at this present moment of time. And Arteta basically said, okay, you can have it. Show me why you deserve it. And that's a really good thing. Like I said before, he's looked good in pre-season. He's going to be probably one of our most important players at the start of the season. Obviously, Saka's coming off the Euros. He won't be featuring in the first few weeks. Martinelli, he will be at the Olympics. Likewise, it's going to be important that Smith Rowe starts the season well, and he's had a full pre-season. I'm excited to see him in pre-season. So hopefully he has a good time, and hopefully he shows he's completely worth that number 10 shirt. So I'm going to leave you with what we need from the rest of this transfer window. Arsenal need a lot. there's no doubt about it. Arsenal need a few players. We have been linked with a lot of players. I think what's a given is we need a goalkeeper and we need a midfielder. I think you can leave a creator / number 10 till the end of the window. I would still bring one in. But those two positions that I just mentioned are absolutely vital. Goalkeeper, because our current number 2 is Runarsson, and even Leno is not looking very good at the moment anyway. I thought he was really bad against Chelsea. I think he gave the ball away. His distribution was not good. I mean, it's funny because when we signed Leno, the massive thing on board for him was that he could play with his feet, and you haven't really seen it in a while, if at all. So I think that is a deal we need to get done. We've obviously been linked with Aaron Ramsdale for about 30 million. I think even Sheffield United are asking for 40. I think I've mentioned on here before, I don't think he's a real Premier League standard keeper at this present moment of time. He can obviously improve, but I just don't think he's absolutely ready for the Premier League. He's obviously, if he gets bought for 30 million, will be a keeper that is going to be viewed as a number 1. Now, if the scouts and the coaches think differently, then I'm not one to question them, because they have more knowledge than I ever will about these situations. But from what I can see with my eyes, I just don't think he's worth that kind of money. So it's difficult. I've obviously seen other people say maybe we can kick the can down the road and maybe we can buy a keeper next year and just loan one in this summer. But if we're establishing that Leno's going to leave next season, then we would need to buy 2 keepers next year. So I sort of understand the need for a keeper, and we definitely need a keeper. So a keeper who can be number 2 at the start and then go on to be number 1. I understand the rationale, even if I think spending that much money on Aaron Ramsdale is completely nuts. Then obviously there's the central midfielders. We've been linked with Locatelli, but I'm pretty confident he's going to Juventus. We've been linked with Ruben Neves continuously, but it's sort of gone a bit quiet. Bruno Guimaraes, who I mentioned earlier, we've been linked with this week. So that's one I would love for us to sign. We've obviously signed one central midfielder, but that's a Danny Ceballos replacement. Ceballos obviously left back on loan. So we need another one, especially if Xhaka leaves. I would still sign one if Xhaka stays and maybe move El Neni on, and then you at least have improved the quality of the midfield at Arsenal. But what I worry about is if Xhaka is staying now and he has been convinced to stay, that Arsenal just settle for the central midfielders we have. And I don't really want that or see that happening. So I think Arsenal will sign a central midfielder in the next few weeks. I think it's such an important position. I think a team can go up a level or go down a level just based on how good their midfield is. You can have all the great strikers in the world or great defenders at the back, but if you don't have a solid base in midfield, you're pretty much not going anywhere. We need that partay partner. And then there's obviously number 10, and we've been linked with some strikers as well. So number 10, Maddison's obviously the one that's on everyone's lips. For the reported fee, it's a lot. I like Maddison a lot. I think he's a great player. He's got that X factor about him, which I don't think shows up on stat sheets, for example. And obviously I try and use analytics as much as possible to base my opinion on signing players, but he has just something about him that I think with the eye test you can kind of see. I think it's difficult to sign Maddison when you've given the faith into Emile Smith Rowe. I think they can play together, but I think if Maddison does join, you're asking Smith Rowe to go out on the left, and then you're asking, well, what happens with Gabriel Martinelli, for example? So it is a bit of a difficult one. And then you have Odegaard, because that's a player who we thought we probably couldn't get. He obviously sent a really sweet goodbye message to the Arsenal fans. It looked like it was done, but there has been some changes in pre-season, and it looked like he can or maybe go, which is pretty big. So hopefully Odegaard or Maddison is brought in. Either or is fine. Odegaard would be probably less than £40 million, and Maddison we are saying about 70. So if you told me you could sign Bruno Guimaraes, Martin Odegaard, and a goalkeeper, I'd probably take it over a goalkeeper and just Maddison, because I think that first option would probably improve us in the long run. And we've obviously seen Odegaard play with Smith Rowe, and they would both develop at the same time. They're both very similar ages and very similar profiles, even if I think Odegaard's more of a passer and Smith Rowe's a bit more explosive in the way he plays. So that's a very important position. It's one that I've gone on for a very long time about, because Arsenal should be getting more creators. It was our number one issue last season, so hopefully that is something that we can sort out. And finally, we've been linked with a couple of strikers recently. Now, this is something that if you could sell Alex Lacazette and Eddie Nketiah, that I would do. Tammy Abraham, who scored today against Arsenal, has been someone who's been linked for £40 million. I went on the Latte Firm podcast recently and talked about Tammy and said that I thought he was a much better player than people give him credit for. He obviously has a good season under his belt in the Premier League, and I think a lot of people forget that. He didn't have the best of times last season, but I would still be willing to bet that he's a good striker, and I think any team that he goes to in the Premier League would be getting a very good forward. And then there's the ambitious one, Lautaro Martinez. Now, I have no idea if this will ever happen. I think it's pretty much not going to happen. But if there is a very slim chance that you can make this happen and you've been alerted about it, you do it. Because he's a younger Aguero. I think he would be the perfect striker in an Arteta system. I think it's clear to see that Arteta prefers a striker like Lacazette up front. And I think Lautaro Martinez is that type of striker. He's not really the back to goal, but I think he's a bit more of a striker who can bring others into play. And if you want your wide forwards to be your goal scorers, so Pepe and Martinelli, Saka, you want a striker who can drop deep as well as score. I like Lautaro Martinez, and if even there's a hint of we can get it done, then do it, Arsenal. Absolutely do it. Striker isn't a position that I would have underlined at the start of the summer as a priority, but I think if Lacazette and Eddie go, then buying a striker that's in between Aubameyang and Balogun could be a good option, and then you can allow Balogun to leave on loan and get some real senior football. But we still have a lot to do, and we only have a few weeks. I mean, it's 12 days now until the opening of the Premier League season, so we have a few days now until we start the Premier League, so we need to start getting a move on. Obviously, we have until the 31st of August to bring in players, but you want them early and you want them integrated as quickly as possible. So hopefully we can pull in another 2 signings before the end of the window, at least. Right, so that's the end of the podcast. It's been a bit of a longer one, but I hope you've enjoyed. It's been a bit of a different one because I haven't really set up topics. I just thought, stick a microphone in front of me and start talking about things. Obviously, Arsenal have one more pre-season game. It's against Spurs. I don't know why we're playing Spurs in a pre-season friendly. I don't even think you can call it a friendly. And then the start of the season is here. On that week of the start of the season, you will see me do a preview podcast for the season with my predictions of where we're going and where I think we'll finish, best players, worst players, all these awards that I think will be good to preview just before the start of the season. We start against Brentford away on Friday, so let's see what happens, and hopefully Arsenal can pull in some players through the transfer market between now and the start of the season, but also now until the end of the window. But thank you for joining me as always. I hope it hasn't been a long wait for you guys. But until next time, come on you Gunners.
Well, it's broken Kanu's way, and De Hui's right out of the centre. It's Kanu, what's he going to do? Oh!